Thank you for coming to this presentation entitled Testing Your Messaging Application. We're going to show you some code, so if you're lost at any time, just go to Spring Cloud Samples Messaging Application GitHub account, where you will see all the code. So since we have a lot of stuff to talk about, we're going to waste some time on talking about us.
Right.
So my name is Marcin Grzejszak. I work for Pivotal at the Spring Cloud team. I'm working mostly on those free projects, Spring Cloud Sleuth, Spring Cloud Contract, and Spring Cloud Pipelines. My Twitter handle is @mgrzejszak, and my blog is toomuchcoding.com.
All right. I'm Jakub Pilimon. I work at Pivotal too. I am a Spring Developer Advocate, which means I get the privilege to face a lot of smart people like yourself, and also I work with smart engineers like Marcin's teammates. And my biggest software loves are domain-driven design, test-driven development, and architecture. So I tweet under Jakub Pilimon. I blog over there. And about the last one, I'm very excited because I'm a co-founder of the DD by Examples initiative, which is basically a set of projects that aim as a bridge towards DDD enthusiasts and Spring users. So is there anyone interested in collaborating, just feel free to ping us at GitHub. There's plenty of fun work to do with us.
Okay, so let's get started. So let us assume that I'm an enterprise architect in a company, and every developer decided to leave the company because of some reasons. So I'm the only one there. I typically code on the slides, but this time I have to do some real coding. So since there's a lot of stuff to do, I need to hire a consultant. And since I didn't have much money, I could only afford Jake here, Jake the consultant. So maybe I'm going to introduce you to our domain.
All right, let's start.
So we are doing some financial stuff. So essentially what we're doing is we're giving away credit cards.
You are issuing credit cards?
Yes, we're issuing credit cards. And maybe, because the developers told me that the code says more than 1,000 words, I'm going to maybe show you their code.
You meant this?
Yeah, so we have tests. I think those are the two tests that we have. That's why the plural form.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially this is a black box test written in Spock. It's in Groovy. What happens here is like if somebody was born before the 70s, we grant that person a card.
All right.
Yeah, so this is the personal ID. If somebody was born before the 70s, we reject that application.
Makes sense.
So this test sends a request to the controller, and we check out the response. So we can check out what's in the controller.
All right.
So let's check out what's in the service, because this is the crucial part.
By the way, is the font big enough for the guys in the backseat?
Okay.
Right, good.
So since we believe that the code can be self-documenting, if you are born before 70s, there's going to be an optional, so no card. If the situation is different, we grant a card and we store it in the database.
That's this complex system, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a MVP, something that we did in our free time, and then it was a prototype that has gone to production. That's what always happens, right? So the feature right now is we had another prototype written, a notification application. So
a different service.
Yeah, a different service. A different service was written, and now we need to start, informing that notification service that somebody got the card or didn't.
So there are two cases.
Yeah, there are two cases, and we have to inform that service. Another thing is that I am more than certain that there will be more services that we'll have to notify in the future about this situation. So new applications, etc.
So not only notification service might be interested in this.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Business will want more.
All right.
In addition to this, whatever happens in our system, the process of issuing cards has to be stable. Okay, so if we have a lot of load, a lot of people trying to, click and get the cards, writing bots to do it, it has to be stable.
So how about the performance of those downstream services?
Yeah, very good question. I can see that you're a good consultant. So if all of those other services are down or are slow, it cannot impact the main process.
The main process of granting.
Yeah, the main process of granting and rejecting cards. And I know how to do it.
So there is like plenty of services besides this one that we are looking at right now.
For now we have one, but in the future we can have more.
All right.
So I know how to do it. I have a very, very good idea. So maybe you will type because I have one hand only
Okay.
available. So
You forgot how to code.
I didn't forget because I never knew. So so the thing is, whenever somebody got the card or not,
All
we will
right.
send a REST request to that service.
Like
so
here,
yeah, we
REST
would send an HTTP call to notification service.
All right.
And the same if the card was granted. And now,
Different with
the
REST code.
ingenious thing is about this solution is that when you have a new service, you will add another line and another call.
Like here.
And you know what the best thing is? I am paid by the line of code.
All right. So you just
So,
you
yeah,
make money. A lot of
I'll
money.
make money and will notify all the services. That's it.
Don't you get paid by the quality of software you deliver?
No.
No.
So what do you think? I mean, we can go to production, right?
It's gonna work. Well, the answer is it depends.
So the question is on what?
On your functional and non-functional requirements. So you said that there might be different services interested in this information, right?
Yes.
So each time there's a new service that is interested in this, you have to modify this code, add new lines, blah, 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 modify tests if you have those
What
tests.
tests?
If you had those tests, you would have
okay.
to modify them. Essentially, you are modifying a process which grants or rejects a card application for some different reason. So it violates open-close principle, right? You have to
Okay,
modify
wise
this
guy.
code.
So do you have a better option?
Let's stick with REST for a while.
Okay.
It's fine, it's fine. How about when this notification service or a different service or yet another service is down or it's very slow? Will it affect the process of granting your card or not?
I mean, if I don't do anything special, I guess it
Yes.
will.
Yeah. It's going to be slow if the other service is
Yeah.
slow.
Well, what about wrapping it in, there's this buzzword, circuit breaker. I can wrap it in a circuit breaker.
You could, but what about retries?
Oh, so you're saying that, let's say, I want to send a request to notification service. I got let's say, the service was down, so I got a fallback or something, and I have to store the information that I have to retry in some time.
Yes.
That's bad.
It's doable,
yeah,
but it
no,
doesn't work.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Besides, I have seen that you already, guys, are using some kind of messaging patterns in your architecture.
I mean, we use
don't you?
everything. People go to conferences and they come back with solutions, like ideas that we start and never finish.
All right. So we have some messaging.
Yeah.
What do you use? What kind of message broker?
RabbitMQ, I guess.
You have RabbitMQ. All right. So there's already RabbitMQ
Yeah.
in your infrastructure. You don't have to set it up.
No.
It's there. So how about sending one message to your Rabbit, like message card was rejected, and another message in here. And you know what?
Okay.
Message that represent a business fact from the past, it's called a domain event. Have you heard about domain events?
I guess so.
So if you have a message broker, and you have, because I have seen, you can send a message, an event, something has happened. You can notify your message broker, hey, card was rejected, card was granted in this case, right?
Also, you're saying that instead of pinging every single service and saying, can you, for example, send a message? Can you do this? So not only do I have to know the business action on every single service, so with messaging, I say, the thing happened, and do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Oh,
It
okay.
eliminates a couple of problems, like those. Do you know about temporal coupling? Have you heard this buzzword?
I think it's coupling related to time.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Very good. So temporal coupling means that the two applications that want to communicate with each other have to be alive at the same time, at the time of
Okay.
communication, by the way, which is case with REST call, right?
Yeah, yeah.
With this kind of REST
I
call.
mean, you can have workarounds that we mentioned, but yeah, you're right.
That's the first thing. With messaging, you just rely on a message broker, and if the second application downstream subscriber is down, the message broker will deliver the message afterwards. Make sense?
Yeah.
How about this? If the second process is down, it's very slow, it's not very performant, it can get the messages at its own pace. So have like a throttling mechanism built in. So you don't rely on the performance on the downstream application.
So instead of pushing a message, so the service can take, like pushing a HTTP call, so to say, the application will pick as many messages as it can.
Yep.
Okay, good.
You mentioned that there will be, most probably, new applications interested in this information. So with messaging, your producer doesn't really care about that, because all you have to do is just subscribe to your queue or exchange, whatever it is, in your RabbitMQ, and you have broadcast multicast built in. right?
I see. Yeah. The same thing is related to, let's say, instances, right? So if we have a number of instances of a single service,
Exactly.
we don't care, right? We could, let's say, use some sort of service discovery if we're using HTTP, but it doesn't solve anything because we have to know the name, the logical name of the app. I
Yes,
see.
speaking of service discovery, with messaging, you are also eliminating spatial logical coupling. So the two applications don't need to see each other if they want to communicate in the infrastructure, and they don't even need to know about each other.
Oh, okay.
So the producer doesn't know who the consumers are, the consumers don't know who the producer is. There is like a logical coupling eliminated. Make sense?
Okay.
So how
your
about-
solution is better than...
How about we go with messaging, since you already have messaging
Okay, let's do
infrastructure, right? So have you heard about test-driven development?
We do it all the time.
Red-green refactor, right?
I mean, we never started a single line of code without writing a test.
I have seen some tests.
Who does it the same, like a single line of code, production code, without writing a test? Don't be shy, we're friends here.
The problem in your code is that
Everybody, I see.
the problem in your code is that
Oh yeah, this is TDD.
you only have like single line of code.
No, I mean, we have a test.
All right, so it's instead of red-green refactor, it's just
It's green. Yeah, because, I mean, wasn't it like you have to write a test? Nobody said you have to write the body of the test.
Yeah, in fact, you are true. It's quicker. It's quicker, but
TDD, man. TDD.
I'm paid for the time I spent with you, so we are gonna do the longer path, okay? Red-green
You're
refactor.
wasting so much time, but let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
right. So this is a unit test of your apply for card service, right? This
Oh,
guy.
This is Spock again, right? So this is this Groovy framework, right?
Yeah, this is Groovy framework. This is our class that we are going to test.
Okay.
Apply for card service. I
Let's
want
do
a
it.
unit test because I'm predicting this guy will be sending those domain events.
Yeah.
Plus, I have seen some work has been done regarding this domain event publisher in your code. Probably you or some of your colleagues.
I've added only the Java docs.
Oh yeah, so there is this class called domain event publisher.
Yeah, because I've added the Java docs because I didn't really understand what the domain event publisher does. So I wrote that it's a publisher that is responsible for publishing domain events.
It has one public method
Yeah.
which says publish domain event.
And I wrote that it publishes domain events. So I think now it's clear.
All right, so there is this interface we are going to interact with, and I want to test this interaction in my
Sure.
test, right?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So to test the interactions, to verify whether something was called, we can use what?
Mock maybe?
Yeah, we can use mock. So I will need the main event publisher mock, right?
Okay.
I will call it publisher. It's going to be mock. We have to inject
Let's do
our
it.
mock and our repo in here. That means we have to add our publisher in here too, right?
Sure.
Private final domain event publisher. Let's call it domain event publisher. Makes sense. Right. So let's go back to our test. So when someone applies with a client ID or PESEL, indicates that he or she was born in 70s or later, right? When service dot apply, I guess you don't have PESEL validations, right?
It's an MVP,
All right.
prototype. So
Will it
we
work?
only validate the first two digits. You can put letters there. It doesn't matter.
Okay, that means he or she was
Nobody will
born
try
in
to
70s.
steal anything from us, right?
Great. Then I'm expecting this guy, the domain event publisher, that he was called once, right?
Okay.
Especially I'm interested in its method called publish
Okay.
and parameter called or instance of card granted.
So this is the notation like in Mockito with verify. So verify that once that particular method was called with this type of argument.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But since all the cool kids are using now Spocks, no one uses Mockito except for this guy with this beard who wrote these books, but no one
yeah.
cares about that. All right, so
I mean, we're full stack, so we make bugs in all sorts of languages and frameworks. So
nice. So we have this test. I can copy paste. You're probably familiar with this technique.
yeah, I love it.
Right. So this
There are
guy,
books about this technique. I wrote all of them.
it's called copy and replace, or what?
Yeah, exactly.
So there is another test. This guy was born in 50s. That means we are expecting card application rejected, right?
Yeah.
I'll run this test, and this is.
You think it's gonna pass? Is it gonna pass? No, it's not gonna pass.
Yes, it didn't pass.
So this is a TDD red-green refactor, right? So it's
Yeah.
red.
Something
Okay.
new for you. Okay, now we have to write the production code, right? Let's go to
Okay.
production code and actually send those events. The main event publisher, not do. The main event publisher publish new card application rejected. It takes client ID as a parameter, right?
Okay.
How about in this case, I want to publish something different. The card was granted. It takes a couple of more parameters, card number and card limit. I probably can get those for a card, right?
Seems so.
Let's rerun the test. Will it be green right now?
I expect it.
If it's green, can we go to production?
Of course. Oh, but wait, because I typically push with force and then I wonder what I've done.
All
so
right.
here we have an interface, but I haven't seen you implement that interface.
And so we cannot go to production, right? We have to implement the interface.
Yeah.
The test was good. It tested verifies whether we behave correctly when it comes to our domain name publisher, so integration should work, but there is no implementation, so let's add an implementation.
Sure.
That also means that probably we'll need integration tests soon, right?
If you say so.
All right, so let's do an implementation.
We might have one, but I'm pretty sure that it's empty.
Yeah, most probably. So, do you know any particular way to publish messages to RabbitMQ with Spring Stack?
I mean, I heard about this framework called Spring Cloud Stream.
Spring Cloud Stream. Do you know how it works?
Yeah, I mean, because I've gone to a conference and they told me. Spring Cloud Stream is a framework that abstracts the way you send and receive messages. So let's say there's this abstract thing there called a channel. So you send a message to the channel and then you receive the messages from the channel. Now, the cool thing about Spring Cloud Stream, from what I heard, is that you can put on your class path a particular binder. A binder is, let's say, a library implementation that knows how to, let's say, communicate with the piece of infrastructure you have, like RabbitMQ or Kafka, to actually send that message or receive it.
So you are saying that if we have something on our class path in here, right? Let's check our POM. It should be in here. Yeah, there is something about. It's not this class. It's not
it's this one.
This POM.
Yeah,
it's here. Cool. Let's hide it. So we have this dependency. What does it mean? Yeah,
it means that we're telling Spring Cloud Stream that we're going to be using Rabbit as the implementation. So there's no notion of RabbitMQ inside our code whatsoever.
Nice.
We just say we want to send a message to this channel, and under the hood, it's going to send the message to Rabbit. If we wanted to change it from Rabbit to Kafka, we would just change that dependency and no code would be changed.
So this is what Spring Boot users call magic.
It's called technology.
All right.
It's magic for people who don't read the documentation.
All right. So let's use this magic or technology and try to publish things to our downstream consumer.
Yeah, and from what I remember in Spring Cloud Stream, you have predefined channels, like interfaces, called sink and source.
What does it mean?
So those interfaces give you predefined channels, like input channel and output channel, to which you can bind. So in our case, we're going to be sending a message. So we have a source interface. So inside the source interface, we have an output channel. Because typically all the applications, like the default implementations, just send a message somewhere and receive it to a single, let's say, place. So that's why Spring Cloud Stream comes with some predefined interfaces.
So you're saying this is so common, being a source to one output channel, and contrary, being sync to one input channel is so common that it's built into framework.
Yeah, of course you can create your own
interfaces
and extend it.
And as far as I remember, the only thing we need to add is just enable binding with definition of channels. In this case, it's source, right?
Yeah, that means that Spring Cloud Stream will know that there are some channels over there to which it has to bind. We have to map those to particular exchanges in Rabbit, so we do it via properties.
All right.
So
you're pretty good at Spring Cloud Stream.
Yeah, it was a good conference. So in our case, we bind to the output channel. That's why you can see Spring Cloud Stream binding's output. And the destination is the concrete name of the exchange, right? So at the end of the day, in Rabbit, we would see an exchange called channel.
What happens if I change my binder to Kafka right now?
We would have a topic there called channel.
Makes sense. All right, so let's finally code something. So I will have probably to inject my definition of channels in here, right?
Yeah.
Private final. It was called source, right?
Yeah, source, because we're sending.
That should be the first one. Good. And it's as simple as this. Output.send new generic message. Generic message, as far as I remember, it's like an envelope for our message. It has payload, of event. Make sense?
Yeah, you know what? If you check out domain event interface, I did some work because I wanted to
It's
learn.
it's just a marker interface.
Yeah, that's what I do. Nobody uses it actually. That's a problem. But I had this idea because I'm an enterprise architect and I was sketching some canonical models, and I thought that the events, instead of analyzing the payload to see what they are, we could actually make the event tell us exactly, with a single thing somehow. I don't know how to call it really, what type it is.
How thoughtful of you. We can reuse that. Because same like in HTTP, you have metadata in...
Yeah, headers, right?
Yeah, in HTTP headers. How about messaging? We also can have headers in here.
So we can put a type there.
Let's add headers. I will add
that
one
was
header.
Cool. So you see, a good consultant
It's prepared.
has prepared shortcuts
And
for every
samples.
single company to put the headers.
The fact is that your problems are not that unique, to be honest.
Are you saying I'm not special?
You're not special. Neither is your system. All right, so this is it. I think this code will send messages to Rabbit. But we have to test it, right? We have to write this integration test.
Okay, let's do it.
You guys are full stack.
Yeah, of course.
That means you use different testing frameworks
Of
for different
course.
things. So you also have, alongside Spoke, you have JUnit, right?
Of course we have.
So there is a test, of course it's empty, that we can reuse because it bootstrapped the whole Spring contest,
Yes.
right? So it will be a fully blown integration test with the production code of our newly created RabbitMQ producer.
Yeah, but do we want to send, like in the test, send a message to Rabbit?
All right, we don't want to depend on RabbitMQ instance running during our testing because it would be against all of those good practices when it comes to testing, right? You should know that.
So you say, I don't know.
So
I
we
don't
have
know the good practices.
We have to somehow have the whole context, but except for this one special guy.
So maybe, again, something with mock.
Yeah, I think there is something like this, mock bin. Do you know what it does? Mock bin from Spring?
It tells me that maybe it has something to do with beans being mocks.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a mock bin of my domain name publisher. In this way, the whole context is like in production, except for this one guy who produces to Rabbit. During testing, we don't want to push to Rabbit, right?
Of course, let's do it.
And again, when someone applies for a card, and he or she was born in 70s in this case, right?
Yeah.
Is this a correct password? I guess so.
For sure.
Then we are expecting that. What? Good old-fashioned Mockito style. We can verify that the main event publisher and its method publish was called in an argument which is, in this case, card granted, right?
Yeah.
Should work. Let's import this. Yeah. How about the second guy? We can copy paste again. Change the way we apply for a card for 50s, and we are expecting card application rejected. Simple as this.
Sure.
Not this, but this. Right? If I run this test, will it fail? Or
No, it has to pass, and let's go to production, man.
it should pass.
Yes,
right?
of course.
And if it passes, that means we have both unit tests, integrations, we can go to production.
Of course.
If it's green, but let's
That's what
wait.
we pay you for, man.
I think it's not going to be green, but it's green, cool. But it's Friday, and I have to admit something. I'm not very proud about that, but there is one embarrassing habit that I have.
Only one?
Only one that I want to share.
Okay.
I run my apps locally before
What?
pushing to production. Yeah. It's
I'm
not
sorry,
it's not because I'm getting
He was
paid
the
for
cheapest
time.
consultant there, I mean.
And it's not because I get for time being spent in here, because Spring Boot applications takes like 30 seconds to bootstrap. So
It's on your laptop.
yeah, on my laptop. So I will just run this up. I know it's going to run, but just to make sure, it's Friday. No one's looking.
You're wasting our time. You're
Should be
wasting
discussed,
the
right?
money.
I
Who
know.
thinks? I mean, this is obvious, but who thinks that it's going to run?
I will not charge you for this. Okay?
Don't be shy. Who thinks that the app's going to start?
It didn't start.
What?
It didn't start.
It's your IDE.
I think it's my ID or the HDMI connector.
Yeah.
All right. So
What?
it says that apply for card service required a bin of time, domain, even publisher, and it's not
Consider
there.
defining the beam, but
We did
or
consider.
we considered, but did we define it?
Let's check it. All right. So we are missing something in here. But we
that's
had the
embarrassing.
integration test. I'm confused, but I
Somebody
cannot.
knows why the integration test has passed?
Anyone?
Anybody, like?
Hands up.
It's an integration test. Somebody said mock the bean. What does it mean?
So actually, maybe we will do, for the first time, we will read some Java docs.
Are you insane? Can you
Yeah.
can you not write on Gitter to the creators of the framework?
To Philip Webb. I guess he's based in LA and he's sleeping right now, so we cannot just paste messages at Gitter. We
Are
have
you-
to read Java docs.
This is ridiculous. Do you want me to waste my time on reading the docs?
Of course not. I will do that.
Okay.
All right, so any existing single bin of the same time defined in the context will be replaced. That's what we wanted.
Yeah.
If no existing bin is defined, a new one will be added. So it's by
If we
design.
had a price, we would give you one, but we have not.
Yeah.
So
So
sorry.
it's by design. It's not bad. It's not good, but it's by design.
So do I understand correctly that it's adding a bean if we don't set one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to recap, basically, while you were talking, I sketched your architecture. It looks like this. You have the
Okay.
controller. It delegates to apply for card service. It talks with cards, repo, a database. There is this domain event publisher. There's Rabbit, and there's notification app, right?
Looks like.
The first test looks like this. It examined in isolation apply for card service unit test. It could lead us into a good design of our class, test whether we behave correctly with domain event publisher,
Okay.
verified that. It's okay, it's a good test, nothing wrong with this, but it didn't test the body of the domain event publisher.
Correct.
That's why we created the second test, which bootstrapped the whole context.
Yeah.
MVC, even in memory database, right?
Yeah.
Apply for card service, except for this one guy that we really wanted to test because it replaced that with
a mock,
bin.
right?
So
Yeah.
basically, it's same test like it used to be, but longer because it bootstrapped the whole stuff, and it's false positive, by the way. So I think
that
it's-
was unfortunate.
Yeah, it's useless, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. But I will get paid for like 20 minutes more. So
Of course.
let's go further. What we can do? I know that there is some neat tool called message collector. It's built in Spring Cloud testing tools.
Yeah. So in Spring Cloud Stream, so from what they said, because they have those binders, right? So there is the abstraction of the channel, and a concrete binder will allow you to send a message to a concrete infrastructure. But what you can do is you can treat your blocking queue from Java util as the destination to which you're sending messages.
Like this?
Exactly. So for tests, you can say that for the channel output, we want to, drop all the messages to the events blocking queue.
So this is going to be like a mock or stub or something like this for our Kafka queue or RabbitMQ exchange just for testing.
Yeah, and actually, we're going to execute the very same production code as we would do.
This code.
The very same code as we would execute on production, right? So the only thing that we changed is we told this is Spring context, dump the messages to the queue.
All right. It's pretty neat. I'm going to use that. So we injected the definition of channels. We create the queue. We say to our message collector, which is this testing tool, hey, gather all the messages that I would send to Rabbit in production. For testing, we will just store it in our blocking queue so that I can run assertions on my events.
Let's do it.
Right? So again, when someone applies for a card, and he or she was born in 70s, right?
Yes.
And then what? We are expecting that what? The
So no
events-
longer do we have to actually mock anything.
Yeah.
We can check what exactly was sent to the queue.
So I'm interested in the last event that was sent. So I'm going to pull it, right?
Okay.
Maybe I'll check headers. Does it sound okay?
Oh yeah, that's why we created those types. Great.
I'm looking for a value which says card granted.
Granted, yes.
Should work, right?
Yeah.
How about the second test? Again, copy paste. 50s.
It was card application rejected, as far as I remember.
Card application rejected.
Yeah.
Let's run the test. Will it be green?
Of course.
If it's green, just imagine it's green. Can we push to production?
Of course.
All right.
Always. We always test on production.
All right. I don't
Let's do it.
have credentials to pushing to production yet.
Yeah, because you have to wait for 2 months when you're new.
I fired a ticket, so it's okay.
Yeah, let's wait.
So what we could do before pushing to production? All right, there's another habit that I have. How about just an idea? How about we run locally both
Oh,
apps?
come on.
We run local RabbitMQ instance, which is basically running on a machine like ever. So
But why? I mean, the tests are passing. We have unit test passing, integration test passing, second integration test passing.
All
What
right.
is wrong with you, man?
Because it's going to take longer and I need money. So I would run those two applications locally on this machine. There is a Rabbit running on my machine, so
I wrote the other app so we can show it to
yeah.
everybody.
And then if I do HTTP post to the first application, apply for a
Yeah.
card, we could see something in the second app. All right.
Okay.
So there is something regarding the second app, the consumer. How does it look?
Bad because I didn't have much time. I mean, and I don't know how to code. But anyways.
Can you explain this?
Yeah. So let's start with the first class. So on the producer side, we had the source, right? Because we are sending messages. So here we have a sync because we are listening, polling for messages, right?
Makes sense.
So like to the bottom, we have two methods with a stream listener annotation that say, hey, we are listening to the input channel. So whatever message comes to the input channel, please delegate to one of those two methods, and please pick the concrete method by clicking around on classes. And the other thing is by checking the type of headers. So if the header type is card granted, please run the first method. If it's not, please run the second. And since I didn't have much time, we just logged things out.
Hence the header of type that you added.
Yes, that was the idea.
You're very thoughtful. Okay, so what we could do, let's run this application. It should start at some different port, and let's run the producer. And RabbitMQ should be running at my machine.
Oh, we'll see about that.
Okay, it started. How about the second one? So let's go and rerun the first app that previously was failing. This is this one,
Okay.
right? Let's rerun this guy.
Man, it's such a waste of time.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, who thinks that it's going to pass? I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, it's going to work?
All right.
Okay. And who doesn't care, really?
Let's double check
Okay,
whether
there are people.
there is Rabbit running on my machine. It is.
Okay.
So it's good. Let's go back. And what we have to do right now?
Maybe you have some special magic curl that you have prepared
Oh,
to send the request?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you do? That's
Should
amazing. It's
somewhere
amazing.
in here.
So you walk around different companies with a predefined curl.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I do. And it depends.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to post HTTP localhost 8080 with client ID, which indicates being born in 70s. Should we get like 200?
200.
It is.
Okay.
It works. How about the second one? I should have prepared also. Yes, it's in 50s, you see?
Amazing.
So now we should expect like 403, something like
403,
this.
yeah, forbidden.
It is. It
So
works.
what was the problem? I mean, you wasted our time.
Let's see whether the consumer got the messages, right? It's here.
I'm really sorry for...
The guy is here. We have granted, we have rejected. Let's take a look at this consumer one more time to be sure that this is what we are expecting right now. That guy, listener, it's granted, it's rejected. Here was card granted. I think we are done, we are good to go. Here is my invoice.
You know,
Can you pay me?
the value on the invoice is going to be equal to the thing in the brackets.
Here?
There is
What?
nil there.
What's the problem? I think it's again...
You can't divide by this number.
It's again your ID or something like this, because we run two apps. There is RabbitMQ in the middle. The message is there because it was delivered to a specific method handler. First, it was granted. The second message was rejected. So what's there's
You're going
something
to blame it on somebody for sure.
Yeah.
Give me the name of that guy you're going to blame this on.
Let me think about it. I think his name is Jackson.
Jackson, right?
Yeah.
You're blaming Jackson.
I'm blaming Jackson. So probably you serialize things with JSON. So Spring uses Jackson, and you didn't configure Jackson.
Of course not.
That's
it should
why.
work, out of its own.
Yeah, that's why. So take a look at the POJO that you are going to send from the producer.
Okay.
It's card granted. Let's go to the producer. It's somewhere here in the model, I guess.
So you're saying that the message I sent is already broken?
Yeah.
Why?
It doesn't serialize. Because
Why?
of the default configuration of Jackson. Maybe if you add things like, most probably, I will just play around. I will just add getter in here.
Getter.
That's what I do
Okay.
when I don't know what to do. I add getters. And
Typically when I don't know what to do, I add getters and setters.
yeah, so I added getter.
Okay.
Let's rerun the messaging, the producer, right?
If you say so.
Let's rerun and do curl one more time with granted and see
Because
whether.
you're saying that we rebuild the producer, we're having the getter.
Yeah.
So your assumption is that the message will be properly serialized this time?
I don't know. I'm just messing
What?
around.
As a consultant, you
I
don't
have
know?
no idea. It depends.
Okay.
All right, so 50, 70 is 200.
Okay.
Let's take, oh yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
see? It's Jackson, it's your fault, and Jackson's. So here's my invoice.
But it kind of is unfortunate, to say the least, that we have to start 2 apps. What if this app required 3 more apps to run? Do I have to always run end-to-end tests that take a lot of time and money to check that I have misconfigured Jackson?
I'm this close from saying it depends, but you are right, to be honest. It's not good. I have to admit. I don't want to run all of the applications
Sure, me neither.
all the time if I want to check something. Let me think. There is this but there is this testing tool for REST APIs. It's called Spring Cloud Construct.
Oh, you say so.
It's very boring and doesn't work at all.
The tool is boring?
Yeah, and there is this guy. The tool is boring, and the guy who talks about that all the time, like he's very boring. So I know that he talks about REST APIs. You can basically test the same scenario in REST, but in messaging it doesn't work. So I have no idea how to finish our.
So there are 2 things. Yeah. First, the guy is not boring. His presentations are really great. That's the first thing.
All right.
And the second is, if you didn't leave from his presentation recently, you would stay until the end. You would know that you can do exactly the same thing.
I was there, but sleeping.
Oh, okay. So you can do exactly the same thing with messaging. So the concept is that you can define a contract, so an agreement between the consumer of a message and the producer of a message on how the message should look like.
All right.
And it happens
like
I've seen
this?
it, that we have it, right? You can define those contracts in YAML or.
Can you explain what those YAML things mean to me? Because
with HTTP, you have a blocking call. So you send a request and you wait until you get the response, right? With messaging, that's a different story, because something has to happen in your system for the message to appear somewhere. So in our case, the thing that has to happen is this input triggered by. So a method send rejected on the producer side for the tests will have to be executed to trigger a message. And that message that we expect would be sent to a destination called channel. So this is the first thing that we're testing, whether the message was sent to the proper destination and whether it has proper headers and body. So from this, because developers are lazy, and that's good.
This is just YAML.
Yeah, so if we wrote it in Confluence or other wiki page, it wouldn't differ at all because it's just text, right? But thanks to writing it over here and using the framework, we're generating tests to really verify if that's the case.
All right. So
can you show us the test?
Where's the test?
So it's in generated test sources. Oh, you have it there. Amazing.
This test?
Yeah, so this test was generated by a plugin. It's not written by a human. So you can see that there is a method send rejected. Execution.
Can I go?
Yeah, sure, let's go there.
Into the
this method, send rejected, sends uses the publisher, the RabbitMQ publisher, to actually send a message.
The one that we have just written.
Yes, precisely. To trigger a message, and we want to verify whether that message is correct in terms of what's there in the contract. So if it has the concrete headers and the concrete body.
So it's going to serialize the message.
Yes.
Unlike the previous example.
So on the producer side, we'll verify if the message is properly serialized and if it got sent to the proper destination.
So I guess it would fail right now.
Let's see.
Because it's regarding this card application injected. I bet card application injected doesn't have getters. Yeah.
Of course.
So I will add getters and we run this test.
Oh, so the test has failed. Can you show us why?
It's boring, but yes.
So it says it's missing the client ID. So on the producer side, before going with pushing with force to production, we've managed to break the build because the serialization is broken.
I would just add getters as always.
Sure.
And if I run it, it's going to be green?
It should be. Let's see.
I don't believe you. It's a stupid tool.
Thank you. It's so nice of you. Thank you so much.
It works. Okay, it works. So actually, maybe it's not that much stupid because it's serialized and checks the serialized content. And plus, it generates those stubs, right?
Yeah, so what you can do is you can reuse the contracts and the stubs on the consumer side as if the real producer was there.
So with message collector, with the Spring Cloud testing tool, Spring Cloud stream testing tool, we have just tested the left part of our communication.
Yep.
It was good, but still it didn't check the whole communication because the content was not serialized, right?
Correct.
But with those contracts of yours, we can exactly test the whole communication without having to bring up the RabbitMQ and things like this.
And the other apps, right? So if you're a consumer, you can simulate that the producer is there.
So there is a producer, it's tested,
Yes.
it's proved that the contract is correct. Now we can reuse the contract, the client notification upside, and finish the whole process.
That's it.
So it's the ultimate tool that allows us to go to production.
That's what I think about this tool.
I would go to production,
Me too. Let's do it.
except one thing.
It's boring.
One last thing, because I like to learn by mistakes.
You could stop making those actually.
Yeah, but then I would stop learning. So I like to learn by mistake, and I just think we made a huge mistake just at the very beginning of our conversation.
So wait a second. So you waited until the very end to tell us all that all of what we've done is wrong.
I thought you would spot that, but yeah, what I was thinking. So there is a problem, because at the very beginning, first line of our code, we wrote like this. Where is this application service? In here, apply for card service. Take a look. Does it ring a bell, this method? What does it do? What does the Spring proxy do?
Okay, so let's say we have this positive situation that we're going to grant the card.
Just answer my question. What does the Spring proxy do?
Oh, the transactional one, right? For transaction. So for transactional, from what I know, there's a proxy created around this method.
All right.
Once you go out of the method, like let's say you return something, the transaction is committed. So you store stuff
So
in the database.
where's the exact comment? Is it doing this?
Now,
or
here you put it in the cache. It's after you return from the method.
All right, more or less. So, and what we do here?
We send a message to the broker.
What if the
you
broker?
publish the domain event?
What if the broker is down?
I mean, sad?
Yeah, it's sad, and it doesn't respond because it's sad.
So, I mean, come on. So we're trying to save. We're waiting until we get out of the method. We send the message to the broker. We get an exception. Everything is rolled back.
All right.
Okay.
As a happy path. What happens if your broker is up? You publish the method, the event. You try to, the Spring proxy takes over and try to commit in your database is down.
Come on, it's so easy. So it's not a problem. Let's start with. So we try to store. Let's say we run the save thing. So we wait until we get out of the method. We send the message. The message was sent. We get out of the message. And the transaction is rolled back because we were unable to save it. So there's no problem because we have just told everybody in the world that the card was granted, but it wasn't.
There's no
It's
count.
called eventual consistency.
If by eventual you mean never, then yes.
It's an extreme case of eventual consistency.
Yeah. It's called never.
Okay.
So I think there is a mistake. Can you think about a way how to solve it?
I can think of it, but I don't know how to solve it.
All right. So what if you just change the order? Like after a successful commit, you could try to
there was
publish.
something like a transaction something.
I will
synchronization.
just try to.
Transaction
I
synchronization
think
manager.
is this register synchronization, new transaction. I'm just playing around, to be honest. Transaction adapter. Yeah, and after commit.
So what it does is like you can register a callback that after a successful commit, you can do some logic.
Yeah, it's done.
Okay, so we're sure that the commit has happened. Or, I mean, only after the commit has happened, we will send the message.
Yeah, more or
less. So we
less.
can have two cases. The commit has happened or not. So either you send it 0 times or once. Right?
All right. You will send the message once to the domain event publisher, only if the commit was successful.
Yeah.
It's fire and forget. If your broker is down, then there is no event. So it's called at most once delivery.
Okay.
Right?
So when should we use it?
So if your message contains some marketing buzzwords or marketing useful stuff, then probably at least at most once delivery it's enough. You want to spam.
So you're saying it's a business decision, right? So
Yeah.
if we lose it, yeah, it's not that bad, right?
Is there any other alternative that you can think of? And again, you can think, but you can propose.
Yeah, so maybe let's speed it up.
All right, so you could do something different. How about a different implementation of our domain event publisher, which I have seen in your code base, by the way. somewhere.
So if you say so.
Go to implementations. How about an implementation which goes directly to the same database that you store cards in?
Oh, so you're saying that instead of doing two things, like store and send, we just always store successfully, like in the positive scenario, and then we do what?
There are still two things, by the way, but you store two things under one ACID transaction.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's either two of them or nothing.
Okay.
And then you have this publisher which takes a look at the database. Hey, are there any new events that I should publish? If they are, hey, I will go to Rabbit, just like I used to do in the previous example. I will send to Rabbit, and then I will mark my event as published to my database, and that's it, we are done.
What about this transactional thing there? Like, don't we have exactly the same problem?
Yeah, it's the same problem, but moved our publisher in here, which means the event, the card, it's already there in the database for sure. What can happen is that this call will not succeed because...
So wait, so we're going to send a message. We'll try to store the info that it was sent. We didn't manage to.
Because your database is
down, whatever.
Yeah.
We try again, and for example, the fourth time we've managed to do it. So we sent 4 messages, and then we stored...
It can happen, it's called at least once, versus the one you have previously heard of.
But wait a second, we paid you like too much, definitely. So you have to tell us about some sort of a silver bullet, for sure. I mean, I want exactly once, man.
Get rid of microservices in distributed world.
No, that's not a possibility because there's hype, we have to do it.
I have no idea. You could think about things like you are essentially trying to synchronize two things, like one's message broker.
Is there another way of tackling this problem?
Can you think about, can I derive state of credit card from the events, or from the events I can derive state?
So the events like tell us what happened over time. So if we, let's say, take a look at all of those events, we can derive the state, right?
Yeah. So probably if you just store the events, you could serialize the events into somehow your event store, something like this, and then you can just rehydrate the state of credit card and send those events. In that way, you would have to only to call one thing in your domain event publisher.
For sure, there's a buzzword for this. For sure.
Yeah.
How is it called?
It's called event sourcing, something like this.
Event sourcing.
You could use that, but I don't recommend you in this example. I don't recommend that in this example. It's good enough. 2 ways that we have seen to solve it. They are good enough. So I don't know. Maybe you have any further questions. If not, please subscribe to these channels. You will learn a lot about how to exactly code stuff.
Okay.
Not only draw things on in PowerPoint. So Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google+. If you have any further questions, I'm happy to answer them. Here's my invoice, by the way.
I don't, but maybe you have some questions? Any questions? Who thinks it makes sense? Okay, nobody. That's good. That's good. Any questions? Who's, by the way, using event sourcing at work?
Who's using Spring?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Who's using messaging?
Okay,
Who's using Spring Cloud Stream for messaging?
Wait a second. Who's using Spring Cloud Contract? Oh, 2 people. Okay, if there are no more questions, you can approach us and we can talk offline. And if not, thank you very much.
Thanks.